I can't tell you how much I love it when I get to put things in the title or thumbnail that come across like clickbait, but are actually true. I made a promise to myself that I was never going to be clickbaity on the channel, so I love the fact that I can say a 10-second cooldown for your super and it not be bait. I'm gonna zip it though for a second and just let the clip speak for itself. Let's get into how we're making that happen. And also, you voted for it, so you like jazz? Here's the quick build, because as far as abilities go, the setup has been done a lot before, so you might get what we're going for just from this. Combination Blow, Gambler's Dodge, Winter Shroud, Stylish Executioner, Grapple or Duskfield, Facet of Protection, Dawn, Sacrifice, Purpose, Courage. This is your mod setup, and your exotic class item is Spirit of Galanor and any one of these perks. If you want to pause the vid, go for it, otherwise, let's get into the full build breakdown. This build is a massively aggressive, high sustain, high burst damage setup that uses Combination Blow's ability refreshers to generate some of the fastest supers I've had in the game, whilst feeding your teammates an almost constant supply of orbs. I wasn't really that excited to do a Combination Blow build in the first place. In fact, I was kind of ignoring it because it just got so much exposure early on in Final Shape. Plus, I also found the combo loop to be a bit boring. This build completely flips that on its head, because the fun factor of your setup being able to consistently print out supers in 20, 15, 10 seconds has not once felt unfun. The build feels like it shouldn't exist. It just feels weird that it makes supers as fast as it does. But it does anyway, and you can abuse every part of the kit to regen them. We're doing that in mainly two ways. First is our mods, which are doing a lot of heavy lifting for our super regen, with triple heavy-handed for orbs on melee kills, but more importantly, triple distribution on the class item and double dynamo on the helmet. Both of these mods are propped on using your class ability near enemies, and together they're going to give you 8% super energy on dodging near an enemy. I don't think I have to sell you on how much Combination Blow Hunter dodges, but after 13, it's a guaranteed super. Not that you'll need to do 13 dodges, you'll typically have a super in way less than that. And that is in part because of Spirit of Galanor on the exotic class item, where super hits and kills can refund up to 50% of your super on ending. This is as good a time as any to talk about what supers you should be using, because Galanor definitely has supers that work way better than others. As for what you shouldn't be using, Silence in School and Goldie. Goldie's simple, it doesn't land a lot of hits or kills, so it doesn't really get a lot of Galanor's regen, although you might question why not Silence in School, because that both lands a load of hits and kills too. It's down to how Galanor refunds energy, in that it can't refund any super energy past the halfway mark on your super bar, and because the build makes supers so quickly, by the time Silence in School gets regen from Galanor's, which again is on the super ending, so after 14 seconds, you're almost always above 50% of your super already from heavy-handed, distribution and dynamo, so the perk doesn't really do anything useful in that case. That might then leave you wondering why Tether is something I'm going to recommend, because that is also a lingering super. But for whatever reason, according to Galanor, the super technically ends after around 2 seconds after being shot. I don't really have figures here to give percentages on for super returns, and I'm not 100% sure whether hits on anchored enemies before the Galanor regen procs the perk and gives greater energy returns, but a big group of ads normally means 50% of your super. That's the best rule to work off of. Silkstrike is your next option, and what I would definitely consider to be the best super for this build. It hits a really nice balance between good single target damage, good ad clear, and importantly, being able to land both a lot of hits and kills for Galanor. And lastly, you've got Storm's Edge. I will say the other two supers are objectively better. It does less damage, makes less orbs, is generally more risky to use than the other two, and makes Facet of Purpose less useful. But man, Storm's Edge is such a fun way to play this build. Having this super every 10 seconds genuinely has been some of the most fun I've had playing Hunter, You feel so ridiculously mobile in fights. If I'm wanting to try hard with this build, it's Silk Strike or Tether. If I'm wanting to look flashy and have like loads of fun, it's going to be Storm's Edge. And for your second perk on the class item, you've got some flexibility in either Spirit of Liars or Syntheseps to give boosted melee damage, or Spirit of the Star Eater to boost up super damage. I would put Star Eater and Liars over Synthos, but only by a tiny bit. Any one of these perks are going to make the build work really well. I would say though, Star Eater is only going to work with Storm's Edge and Silk Strike. For the other two roles though, anything goes. If you're wanting to take this build into high-end content where you're dealing with a lot of champs, Silk Strike has some really cool features. During Silk Strike, you get access to unlimited dodges. They do cost 4.5% of your super, but they fully benefit from Wind Is Howling, meaning in one dodge, you have overload stun from slow, and in two dodges, you freeze with the shatter afterwards stunning unstops, on top of the 50% DR that Wind Is Howling gives. It makes this super really flexible in content that has those two champs. Speaking of, Wind Is Howling is here mainly to give Stylish Executioner a reliable debuff to work with, but the other part of this aspect that we benefit from is the 50% damage resist for 3 seconds that it provides on dodging. You're typically chaining dodges, so the DR is really nice here. Between that and Stylish Executioner giving invisibility on killing a debuff target, you have some really good survivability. And with Stylish 2, we have got some offense, in that it gives 200% increased melee damage on exiting invis, and makes your melee apply weaken too. For your grenade, I did say Grapple or Duskfield in the beginning, but this is really up to your personal preference. I only make those recommendations because they're both able to get Stylish Executioner procs, and Grapple also makes orbs from heavy-handed. I think if you're using a Gallon or Syntheseps roll, Grapple is the best option here, as it also benefits from Syntho's damage buff, but apart from that specific roll, whatever floats your boat. For your Fragments, Facet of Sacrifice gives bonus Dark Transcendence while you have a light buff. This pairs really nicely with Facet of Dawn for Radiant on melee hits, and Radiant for you and nearby allies on melee kills, although the main reason this is here is to make barrier champs easier to deal with. For survivability, we've got both Facet of Protection, which gives damage resist while surrounded, which increases when transcendent, and Facet of Purpose, which gives an elemental buff depending on your equipped super on picking up an orb. Because we've got triple heavy-handed, every melee kill is going to make an orb, so this has some really high uptime. Lastly, we've got Facet of Courage that gives a small 10% damage bump to light abilities when using them against darkness debuffed enemies. As for gameplay and what you're wanting to do, it's pretty much what you would have seen with any other combination blow build, where you're wanting to keep stacks up of combination blow and spam dodges. Difference being is that you will be flipping the supers around on shorter cooldowns than most regular abilities can fully charge, and this is where this version of a combination blow build is slightly more nuanced. The first and most important tip, do not be stingy with your supers. I hope the gameplay shows a good example of me doing it, but if my super is off cooldown, I use it. The best thing you can do with this build is break out of that mindset of, I need to save my super for ... The only time I won't super is if there's a barrier champ I have to deal with, or ads are really far away. Apart from those two things, spam them, because between dodging, heavy-handed orbs, and Gallinor, it's literally going to take seconds for your super to be right back, and from there, chaining supers then becomes so easy. As for supers, they're all pretty simple, but Silk Strike again has some tips here. First is that you should try to land a combination blow kill right before hitting super. Silk Strike doesn't last that long, and combination blow has a 20-second timer, so if you land a kill, then super, you can go right back into using 3 times combination blow once it ends. And if you're wanting to proc Stylish Invis, you can wait till the very last % or 2 of your super, dodge for free, and then kill anything hit with slow, and you'll go right back into being invis. You can also super dodge, then regular dodge for a freeze, making coming out of your super a lot safer. For the rest of the kids, always try to get that weaken and bonus damage from Stylish's melee. It can be used to reproc Stylish as well, and we've got Void Hegemony this act, which gives overshield on killing a weakened enemy. One thing that's really important to remember is that frozen targets also take a load of extra bonus damage from melees whilst frozen. To the point where if something like a barrier or overload champ is frozen, and you have Stylish's bonus melee damage and either Synthos or Liars up, you're just going to start one-shotting them. making the build super efficient at dealing with champs that have some adds floating around them that you can proc Winter Shroud on. As for Transcendence, it's a bit of a weird one in this build. This setup actually does a really good job at getting to Transcendence, but the neutral game is already so strong that Transcendence doesn't really add a lot to the setup. In this build, it's nothing more than just a bit of extra damage resist and a new grenade, so use this whenever. There's no specific interactions of note here. By your Transcendence grenades being really good for overload and unstops, and proccing stylish from slow, freeze and scorch. And as for where this build is great, anywhere. Doesn't matter if you're solo or not, but it can be so efficient when used in a team setting because of the amount of orbs this build can make. I had a couple of times where I was playing with a Song of Flame Warlock, where I was feeding them orbs for their super, and the orbs made from Song would then regen mine. And I genuinely mean, super, leave super, a couple of seconds later, I'm back in my super. The only place I wouldn't use this is in DPS settings, because it's generally outclassed by other options here like Still Hunt Celestial. And as for the level of content where this build is good, it thrives in the high end. In fact, high end content is the only place that this build isn't just doing overkill amounts of damage. Anything less than a GM, then it's flattening that piece of content. What you've been seeing in the background is all solo GM footage, and I think it's pretty safe to say that the build is doing good. It does have two flaws though. It has to build up combination blow, so you will have to prioritize smaller adds first before you can get access to high damage. Spawns in Destiny typically give you smaller adds around healthier ones, so as long as you're thinking about this, it shouldn't be a problem. Secondly, the build relies on being up close, so outside of weapon choices, your range damage isn't amazing. Although a lot of the time, ranged fights are DPS settings, and again, this isn't really a DPS build. For weapons, you have got so much flexibility. So much so that listing them all would take too long, so if you think it's going to work in this build, go for it. The important part here is not so much the weapons themselves, but some specific perks, namely 1-2 punch to make your melees deal even more damage, and if you're running a strand ability in either grapple or silk strike, slice to make tangles is really nice here too, considering how often we use gamblers. Outside of those, you really aren't locked into anything specific here, so switch up your weapons for different ranges you might play at, or to deal with specific champs like arrows. There is one gun that I want to spotlight though. I did use Still Hunt, and from all the orbs that the build makes, you can literally just keep the gun stowed, pick up the orbs you make from heavy-handed, and you've got a free golden gun in your back pocket without ever having to shoot the thing. And for loadouts, Double Special felt really good here. You spend so much time using combination blow, or being in a super, that you actually have great ammo economy, as long as you just don't blow all your special at once. And lastly, you are able to do the Synthos Tether grapple combo with this build, although it's not really the main focus here. If you do want to see that, I unfortunately can't show you, I don't have Navigator, but a quick Hunter Synthecept search should take you to the right place to show off that whole combo and how to do it. For your mod setup, we've already been through the important parts, but on the helmet you want double dynamo and then either hands-on or a special ammo finder. On the arms it's triple heavy-handed. On the chest, either resist mods or reserves. On the legs you want 1 innovation, 1 recuperation, and then either a scavenger or holster mod. And on the cloak, you'll want triple distribution. For seasonal artifact mods, you've got some great synergies in the build, with galvanic armor from combination blow giving access to amplified, radiant orbs for radiant on orb pickup, void hegemony, which is proc from the weaken of stylish, then transference and shield crush for bonus melee and grenade damage. Threaded blast could be an option, but I feel like if you're building into making tangles, you'll get much more benefit from just grappling to them than shooting them, especially if you're working with a Synthecept roll. And that's the entire build. I won't drag this one out. I imagine a lot of people already have had some experience using a version of combination blow. And if you have, getting into using this combo loop should feel really familiar. I hope you enjoy using this setup. I know I definitely have. It really has made me enjoy using combination blow again, because it does something fun and unique, which is what I think the base version was lacking. If you think it's earned, any subs really do mean a lot, but for now, that's about it from me. See ya.